Hello and welcome to our book club. I'm Minnie Menon. When you talk about Buddhism in India, the names that come to mind are, of course, Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, the Buddhist trail, the great Sanchi Stupa, the cave temples of Maharashtra from Ajanta to Bhaja to Kanheri, and perhaps the eastern leg, which is not really chronicled that much, but we have done a lot of work around. Rarely do we look northwest, even though we are all familiar with Buddhism's journey through the northwest passes into the Great Silk Road and then China. We're talking about the area from Haryana to Punjab to Sindh to through Pakistan to Afghanistan and across into the valley of the Oxus rivers. This is a fascinating area geographically, historically, and also it is exotic because very few of us have access to that area. And no matter how much we want to study it, we can't really go there freely. But today we have a very special guest with us, Sunita Dwivedi, a journalist who's made it her life's work to travel along these roads and get us the stories from there. She's written this book called Buddha in Gandhara. It is, I think, her third or fourth book. She's covered a lot of ground around Central Asia and the spread of Buddhism over there. So Sunita, thanks so much for joining us today. You've been described as a Silk Road traveler, which I find very fascinating. So my first question to you is, what started you off on this quest of discovery of Buddhism across Central Asia?
Actually, I belong to Kushinagar. And Kushinagar used to be a very small village. And in that village, mainly there was forest land, and as you have read, Buddha attained his Mahaparinirvan in Kushinagar. So that was a very sacred site. And this site was so close to my house that from the terrace I could see the big stupa of the Mahaparinirvan Chaitya and the Mahaparinirvan stupa. So I was very impressed, and it impacted me in a way that I used to think that whenever I have some free time or whenever I'm off from my job, I'm going to follow the Buddha from all over India, not only in India, but also in the neighboring countries, in China, in Central Asia, and in the whole of Asia. So that was my dream. I was interested in the Buddhist trade on the Asian circuit of the trade routes. And first of all, I wanted to find out the connectivity of the Buddhist sites in Asia. What was the connection between the Buddhist sites in India, how the road could lead into Pakistan, how it could lead into Afghanistan, into Central Asia, into China, Xinjiang area of China, and into the China proper. Because in the 7th century, in the 4th century before that, we have Chinese pilgrims coming by land from China. Fahian, Wensang. Wensang came from the southwest China, that is the Sichuan province of China. And he traveled all along the Tian Shan mountains, the northern Silk Road, the southern Silk Road. He came through Central Asia, through Kyrgyzstan, Lake Isaikul. He traveled maybe 2,000, 3,000 kilometers to enter India. So how was it possible for a person in the 7th century, where there were no trains, there were no motor cars, yet he traveled by road? So that interested me. And in modern times, everything is available. So I thought it won't be difficult for me to travel all along this route. And I have been able to travel through Pakistan, Afghanistan, whole of Central Asia to Xinjiang, China, and back into India.
But Sunita, you also spent time as a journalist. So this is what you did after you took a break from journalism.
Yes, after I left my job in Hindustan Times and I moved to Delhi, I had a lot of free time. I thought I must now begin my own work. And this was my dream, to follow the Buddhist trail through Asia.
Fantastic. That's awesome. And you did something that all of us have always wanted to do. So I'm going to pick your brains today to see how the journey was. But let me start off by talking about the geography of the area. Like you said, from Fahian to Yonsang, that whole journey across Central Asia through the passes in the northwest into India is fascinating. But you have traced it from here to Gandhara. So I'm going to ask you, the Uttarapath is where we know the faith went into the northwest frontier region and into Central Asia from. Now, it stretches from the Bay of Bengal to all the way to Balkh. Now, give us a sense of the geography of the space, especially in the context of the stupas along the way, which will tell you the route that the faith took.
Actually, I have written a lot about this highway. It took shape in the 3rd century BC, that is during the Mauryan times of Ashoka. By laying this highway, or maybe a rudimentary highway, Ashoka and emperors after him, they tried to bring into the orbit of Indian merchants, the whole of China, trading from China, from Central Asia, and even as far as the Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean shores. So this highway was from Bengal to Balkh, and from Balkh across the Oxus, it was connecting with the highway in Central Asia, through Xinjiang into China. And through Persia, it was connecting with Eastern Mediterranean. So this was actually a trade route through which traders were coming into India. Indian traders are going across the world, I should say, Asia, Europe, everywhere you will find that Indian goods were reaching. So it was primarily through this highway, and which even Western scholars have called it the Great Indian Road. This highway has been called the Great Indian Road because it was connecting with the highways through the world, through Asia, through the highways to the Eastern Mediterranean shores. So this highway, and along with these trade caravans, where merchants were traveling, even monks were traveling, missionaries were traveling, the conquerors were traveling with their armies, peacemakers were traveling, artists were traveling. So this is how Buddhism, it spread through these trade hubs, and there were trade hubs along these caravan routes.
We do know that, Chandragupta Maurya studied at Takshila, Chanakya or Kautilya was in Takshila. So Takshila was, the Uttarapath was well formed even before the Mauryans, though the Mauryans are supposed to have paved it and made it into a kind of a wide-laned, route. But I'm going to ask you about the essence of the book, which is really Buddhism in Gandhara. And of course, while Ashoka kind of acted as a facilitator for the spread of Buddhism because of the missionary zeal with which he went to it, you have indicated that the movement had started before. In fact, you say that even during the time of the Buddha, there could have been some connection, which I find very fascinating, because just to put this in context for our viewers, the Buddha, I think, gained enlightenment when he was in his early 30s. We know he passed away in 80-81 in Kushinagar, as you mentioned. But the interim period, we don't know very much about. We know he was a bhikkhu, he traveled with his people. We know about his evidence in Patliputra, in Rajagriha, etc. But you seem to think that he actually physically went, because there's a lot of myth attached to it, because we know that he's supposed to have come to Sopara, for instance, near Mumbai. But what is the evidence that makes you feel that he might have traveled along this Uttarapath?
See, we have got concrete evidence because he was born in Lumbini, but his enlightenment took place in Bodh Gaya, and the places he traveled throughout his life, they have all been recorded. Because after him, Ashoka was in 3rd century BC, Ashoka was trying to trace all these sites. Ashoka himself was trying to trace these sites. So all these sites have been recorded, which were related to Buddha's own, his own travels. During his travels, there were certain periods like the rainy season retreat, where the monks were not supposed to travel. So in those 4 months of the rainy season, they were staying in these rainy season retreats. They were saying, so there were many places which were rainy season retreats, where monks stayed during the rainy season. These have also been recorded. And there were many places which were related with these retreats, and where later on the monks, they built the monasteries and stupas. So these have all been recorded. And manuscripts have been found there, inscriptions have been found there. So it is not that it is a myth or something. These have been recorded and the history has been traced about these sites. And regarding Buddha's journey, for 45 years he was traveling. So it is possible that many places have been recorded and many places may not have been recorded. As scholars are saying that during these 45 years, he could have traveled to Punjab. And there were Buddha's contemporaries who were already in Gandhara. The kings of Gandhara, that is Pushkar Sharin. Even these names have been recorded by scholars. King Pushkar Sharin was ruling in Gandhara during the period of Buddha. Then another king, Rudrayan, was ruling over the lower Indus region. So these kings, during the time of Buddha, they converted to the Buddhist faith. They joined the Sangha. So these things have been recorded. So it is possible, inference has been made, it is possible that these kings, after they joined the Sangha, they could have invited Buddha to preach in their kingdoms. They could have invited Buddha to preach in their kingdoms. And history has recorded that Buddha had reached up to Kuru, and Kuru was in Punjab. These were all contiguous areas. Punjab, the Western Punjab, Gandhara, the Indus area, these are all contiguous areas. So if Buddha could reach Punjab, and he was preaching in Punjab in the area of Kurukshetra and Kuru, and so many monasteries are there. So scholars have inferred that it is possible that he could have gone to Gandhara.
The journey itself is very fascinating, Sunita. Your journey, your quest from where Delhi is where you started it, or was it in Allahabad? So take us through the places that how did you first map it out?
So first of all, this book was written, this is the fourth book, so it was written later. Before this, I had already traveled all over India, tracing the Buddhist sites in India, writing about them, photographing them. After that, I traveled to China. The Buddhist sites in China along the northern Silk Road, along the southern Silk Road, up to Sichuan province. Then the third part was Central Asia, that is across the Oxus. Across the Oxus through Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, all these places. Last of all, I traveled to Pakistan and Afghanistan. So
you kind of reversed the
yeah, it was kind of a reverse journey. So this to Pakistan, I traveled from Delhi, and I took a bus to Lahore because I wanted to see the places from Delhi to Lahore. From Lahore, I was traveling to Peshawar, to Islamabad, Peshawar, and to Mardan and all these places in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area.
So tell us about that route. We don't realize how the present day Pakistan was largely Buddhist, and that's the point that you make till the Islamic invasion or movement in the 8th century, that it was largely Buddhist. We don't realize that enough. We don't underline that enough. And of course, the early archaeologists, John Marshall, etc., did a lot of work trying to trace the Indo-Greek and Buddhist legacy of that area. But now a lot of that is lost to us because we can't access it. So I'm going to ask you, which are the main sites that you think were very significant? Because there's so many ruins over there. Take us through this journey of the highway, so to say, through Afghanistan.
See, the main highway was this GT road, this
Sure.
Grand Trunk Road, which I'm saying the Mauryans laid this road in the 3rd century BC, but later on it was updated, like it was modernized during the medieval times of Sher Shah Suri, and it was called the Sher Shah Suri Marg. Even then it was connecting with Kabul. Later on it was further, during the British rule, it was further updated and modernized into the Grand Trunk Road. So this road was passing, as I told you, that from the Bay of Bengal right up to Kabul. And these routes, you can travel on these routes. The modern routes, they are better. You are better equipped to travel on those routes. And these routes are passing through the main sites. The main sites, that is, if you begin from Manikyala, from Lahore, you travel on the GT road. It is right on the GT road, Manikyala. From Manikyala, you travel to Taxila. From Taxila, you travel to Peshawar. From Peshawar to Mardan. In Mardan, there are so many routes going to so many of these sites like Shehbaz Gari, from to Takhtabahi to Sikri to Sehli Behrol, and so many places. They are small routes which are going. These are the branch routes.
Right, and we have stupas in all these places. I'm going to talk about the Manikyala stupa, which is close to Lahore. It's very interesting because it was discovered by Mountstuart Elphinstone, who has a very strong connection with the city of Bombay, of course, because he was a governor here. But he found the stupa, and what is interesting is the relics found over there. Now, you have pointed out that these could be the relics of the Kushan ruler Kanishka, which is very, very interesting. Tell us about your journey to Manikyala. What did you find over there? And what is the literature that points towards it being the resting place of Kanishka?
See, from Lahore, I was traveling by road on the GT, this Grand Trunk Road. And Manikyala stupa used to be a 400 feet high stupa. But now it is in a totally ruined condition. And still it is so high that you can see it from the main road. And the preservation, I should not say it is very good. The preservation is not so good. And there is no one to look after the stupa. And with great difficulty, we could enter the stupa because it is all locked. And it is surrounded by this Atta Chakki, tea houses, school, and all these places. It is totally crowded. So, and it is locked. It is locked. So we had to jump into the premises of the stupa. Inside, you will find that you can still see the circumambulatory path. You can climb that. There are stairs leading to the circumambulatory path. There are still some lotus carvings on the dressings of this stupa, on the dressing stones of this stupa. And that this was the Manikyala stupa has been proved by the inscriptions and by whatever was unearthed from the stupa during excavations. So, and this was during the time coins were found there. So this was during the coins proved that this was during the time of the Kushans.
So will you, for us, Sunita, since we've not been to these places, take an example from each of these places that you mentioned? Perhaps, you know, after Manikyala, you can go towards Peshawar, and then, as you said, Takshila, Mardan. Take one example of one of the stupas that really left a mark for you.
First of all, you find this Manikyala stupa. So it is, as I told you, it is right on the GT road. Then GT road will lead you into Rawalpindi and Islamabad. From Islamabad, the Himalayan highway, the Kashmir highway, it leads to Taxila. So in Taxila, there are so many monasteries, and there are lanes leading into one monastery. Then first of all is the biggest monastery, the Jolian Monastery. Jolian is the biggest, and it's a UNESCO heritage site. So, and it is the main monastery in Taxila. Then after Jolian is the Mohra Muradu. Mohra Muradu is also very famous. It is also a UNESCO site. Then from Mohra Muradu, you can go to other monasteries. There is one stupa, the largest stupa, which has been built by Ashoka. It belongs to the 3rd century BC. The Dharam Rajika stupa at Taxila. You can see all this. And from Taxila, you can come back to Islamabad. The highway leads to, I have been traveling on that highway to Peshawar. Peshawar, the most renowned Kanishka stupa was there at Peshawar. But now the Kanishka stupa is lost. I tried to search for it, but it was, a big graveyard has come over the stupa. You can't locate the stupa, and only some hardened pieces of soil, some hardened pieces of pottery can tell you that it used to be some kind of place where there was some structure. Otherwise, that stupa is lost. But what you can see is that the antiquities that were unearthed from this stupa, near the monastery, can all be found at the Peshawar Museum. So the Peshawar Museum is the main place where you will find everything that has been lost. And
I've heard a lot about the Peshawar Museum. It's got the most fantastic pieces. I attended a lecture with one of the curators over there. Tell us, what are the 3-4 items that you'd like to talk about from the Peshawar Museum? What are the items that stood out
First
to you?
of all, if you have been to the Delhi, the National Museum at Delhi, you must have been there. So in National Museum Delhi, you will find that one hall, the big hall, has been dedicated to the Buddha. But in Peshawar Museum, I will tell you that at least 3-4 halls, massive halls, have been dedicated to the Buddha. And there are the colossal images of the Buddha. You will be amazed. It is amazing. Colossal images of the Buddha which have not been seen anywhere on the Silk Road. Such images which have not been seen anywhere on the Silk Road. And antiquities that have been found from all over Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area. You have to visit the Lahore Museum to get a backgrounder of what you're going to see.
Mardan is again a place that you mentioned which has a lot of Buddhist era stupas and monasteries, etc. Take us through some of the important sites that you saw over there.
The first important site of Mardan is the Takht Bahi. Takht Bahi is a UNESCO site, and it belongs to the 1st century CE, 1st century BC, 1st century CE, and it has been really preserved well, and it is being guarded well, because when I went there, there were armed guards. There were armed guards who were guarding the site, and huge site. The statuary art that was found there in the niches, the tall niches of Takht Bahi, as I told you, they are all in the Peshawar Museum, because those niches are empty at Takht Bahi. You will have to go to Peshawar Museum to see all these artifacts. At the site, there is nothing. No statuary art remains at the site, but yet you can see the tall niches, and you can imagine how beautiful it looked when the statues were there, when the stupas were there, because the stupas are all ruined. The height of the stupas they were demolished or whatever, they were ruined due to the vagaries of nature. But the most beautiful site in Mardan is Takht Bahi. And there are other sites like Jamalgarhi site. Jamalgarhi site also had a rare kind of stupa. It was a circular stupa. It was a circular stupa, but over here also the niches have lost the Buddha images. No Buddha images are there. So for this also you have to go to the Peshawar Museum to see those. But there are other sites. There are other sites like Sikri. Sikri was once a very big, massive establishment. And I went to that village to see if there was some trace of Buddhist antiquities. But I was very disheartened to find that nothing remained. And the stupa that was found there was in a very dilapidated condition. So it was restored and brought to the Lahore Museum. And now it is the center of attraction at the Lahore Museum, in the Buddha Gallery at Lahore Museum. But there are dress stones. You can see dress stones, some moons in the village, because while I was traveling in the village, all the villagers are following me, because when they heard that a lady from Hindustan has come to check what is there remains in that village, so they were all very curious. They wanted to tell me, wait, don't go. Maybe there is something over here. Please see this. Maybe there is something over there. Please see this. But actually, nothing remained over there. But whatever was found was brought to the Lahore Museum. So, if you want to see the antiquities, if you want to see the art of Gandhara, you will have to mainly go to the museums. Mainly go to the Lahore Museum, and to the Taxila Museum, and to the Peshawar Museum, because nothing much remains at the site.
Okay, so talking about Buddhism and the sites across this region, there are two phases really. If you were talking about Gandhara, one is the Indo-Greek, the first phase of the building work, and Gandhara is important to us because it is the first time that a form was given to the Buddha, right? And the Bodhisattvas, there was imagery associated with it. And that's why, of course, the most exquisite imagery was associated with it. Now, Kushana period was the next period where there was this huge flurry of activity around Buddhism. Of course, we also had a lot of damage done later with Mihirakula, etc. So I'm going to ask you, from the Indo-Greek period, what were the 2-3 sites or the places that you would like to mark out?
See, the Indo-Greek or the Bactrian Greek, the Greek rulers, we know about two rulers, the main two rulers. One was Demetrius. One was Demetrius. He was in Hindi, in India we call him Devamitra, the friend of justice. So he was also interested in Buddhism. After him came Milind. His name was Menander. In India we called him Milind. So he was also interested in.
Milind is, of course, the Milinda Panna fame, right? The person who had the dialogue on Buddhism. I mean,
so Menander had a dialogue with the senior monk Nagasena. Yeah. And this Milind Panha, this text, the question and answers between Menander and senior monk Nagasena, this whole setting was in Gandhara. So Gandhara was so important. This setting of this Milind Panha was in Gandhara. So these two Indo-Greek kings, main kings, who were interested in Buddhism, who promoted Buddhism. So Milind even built a vihara. It was called Milind Vihara, and he donated it to the Sangha. So they were all, the Indo-Greek kings were also building viharas, adorning of the viharas, and inscriptions have been found pertaining to the Indo-Greek period.
There were 2 centers. One was Peshawar, present-day Peshawar, and the other was Mathura. Those were the 2 capitals of the Kushana kings. So in Peshawar, what is the reference to or the remains of Kanishka's time?
See, during most of these monasteries were built during Kanishka time. It was the 1st century, 2nd century. The Kushan period was during the 1st or the 2nd century. So most of the monasteries, not only in Pakistan, but in Afghanistan, even in Central Asia, they were built during the Kanishka period or later Kushana period. The UNESCO heritage site of Takhtabahi, the Jamalgarhi, the Sikri, they were built during the Kushana period.
Tell me, coming to the moot point, it's not very easy to access these places, Sunita. How did you, what was the journey like for you? How long did it take for you to be able to travel? Because you did travel with with members of the Gandhara Art and Culture Foundation, for instance, that gave you a lot of access. So how easy or difficult is it for Indians to travel through this area, especially in Pakistan?
See, for me, I had a lot of support. I had a lot of local support in Pakistan. Even in Afghanistan, I had a lot of local support. So I was traveling with this Gandhara Art and Cultural Association and the University of Punjab, which is in Lahore. The Dean of the History Department was also, he had also organized my journeys. So he was also helping me. The Gandhara art was helping me. So it was not that I didn't know anything or I didn't know anyone. I was just traveling alone. I had a local support and people were welcoming. They were ready to help me everywhere. Like I did not stay in any hotel. I was staying with the Gandhara Art and Culture in their homes. I was staying, and I did not even spend a lot of money on my journey because these people were there to help me. So for me, it was easy. I do not know about other people. For me, it was easy. And even the bus journey from Delhi to Lahore, it took about 7-8 hours. I thought it was very easy. To just take a bus ticket, sit in the bus, reach Lahore, and over there, if you...
But before that, you had to get a visa for Pakistan, Sunita.
That was a bit difficult. That was because they made many inquiries. And why you want to go there? What is your project? They wanted to see all my project because I had already worked before. I had already worked for 3 books. So I presented everything to them that, see, I have already done work. This is a part of my work and which I must finish. And you must give me a visa because after all, these icons of Buddhist tourism are there in your country. So you must allow the world to see, you must allow Indians and the world to know what is there and what remains. So they relented and they gave me, but with difficulty. They didn't allow me to travel to Khyber Pass or to Swat. So my travel was restricted along this Grand Trunk Road.
You know, you've traveled extensively across Central Asia and India, of course, in these Buddhist sites. What always troubles me is the state of our sites, and it's across the subcontinent, I think, you know, because one leg we haven't spoken about is the leg that I kind of started the conversation on, the fact that we never think of sites like Ambala, Haryana sites as Buddhist sites. Our mental framework is always East focused and not West focused. What is the state of some of these stupas? Because one thing that unites India is our apathy towards our monuments, right? I mean, apart from a handful of monuments, we've done such a bad job keeping these monuments. So my question to you is, first, do talk about this leg of within India, from Delhi to Lahore leg, and then let's talk about the state of some of these monuments, because we all know what happened to the Bamyan Buddhas. But let's start off with this Delhi to Lahore leg.
See, myself, I have not been to, particularly to any of these sites. I have read about them, to be very frank. I'm now planning to go to these sites and write about them, a separate paper on these sites from Delhi up to Amritsar. All have not been excavated. And what is the condition of those monasteries? What antiquities are found there? What antiquities are there in the Jhajjar Museum? There are a few antiquities, but not detailed work I have not done on this site. But I'm planning to write a separate short, a book, a short publication on these sites of Punjab, because these are important. Because now we are finding scholars have written that Buddha visited the area of Punjab.
Yes, and we're talking about something that was found in Gurgaon from the 4th and 5th century CE. There is a site in Rohtak, there is Ambala. So there's a lot to cover.
Ambala, there is Karnal, there's so many Agroha site. There's so many sites in Haryana, because Haryana was once a part of Punjab, and all these missionaries, they were traveling with the caravans through this route. So they were halting. Those people coming from Bengal or from other parts, they were halting at these stations. And wherever they were halting, they were building some, supposing there was if the rains came, they halted at that place for 4 months. They were building some kind of monastery or short stay. And later on, it became a big monastery. So these sites are very important. And these, I don't think much else. But D.C. Ahir, one author, D.C. Ahir, has mentioned all these sites. He has written in details about these sites. Okay. So if someone wants to find, then D.C. Ahir is the person who should be.
Fabulous. Let's talk about the state that many of these sites are in your travels through Pakistan, Afghanistan, etc. How are they maintained? How you already spoke about how easy or difficult it is to access, but what is the sense that you got when you traveled?
See, some sites have been maintained very well, especially the UNESCO heritage sites have been maintained very well. But there are other sites which are totally lost, like the site of the place from where this stupa of Sikri, this place of Sikri, the village of Sikri, everything is totally lost. I couldn't find anything in that stupa. And the place of Sahri Behlol, this is a very important site, Sahri Behlol. And there were so many establishments in Sahri Behlol, because scientists from India, Debala Mitra, who was an archaeologist, had gone to that site to explore. And she has written that there were many establishments at Sahri Behlol, but now the whole has been encroached upon by the people. The entire site has been encroached upon. Government can't do anything. In fact, when I went there to explore the site, the local people were very angry. They thought that some demolition squad had come there. So they all collected on the mountain, on the hilltop, and they were very angry. They were shouting from there. So we had to abandon our visit to that site. So that site has been totally usurped by the people. And there are certain other sites like Shehbaz Gadi. Shehbaz Gadi, where the Asokan rock inscription is there, but other monasteries and all, we don't find much of that. So likewise, I told you about Manikyala. There is very poor preservation of Manikyala, but the Taxila sites are well preserved. The Taxila sites are very well preserved because there is a UNESCO heritage site.
What about Mardan? What about Kabul? What about Balkh?
I'm telling about Mardan, there are about hundreds of villages that have been, still the Buddhist establishment is buried under the earth. And villages have been built on that. So, but now the government of Pakistan, the archaeology department is trying to excavate some of those villages, and they are finding a full Buddhist city under it. And like this, there are hundreds of dheris. It is called dheri. And the villages are named after the dheri, like Rana Dheri, Tor Dheri, Bagicha Dheri, Etam Dheri. They are all dheris, but actually they are all Buddhist establishments, which are
mounds. So dheri is essentially
dheri is a mound. So all these villages which are named after dheris, like I named them, they all have Buddhist establishments buried under them. And some of the establishments the government is trying to excavate and explore. But also there is illegal mining going on in these dheris because people are tunneling and taking out the antiquities, and it has a very wide market. So these sites in Pakistan has got many sites which have not been explored, many sites that are in very good condition. They have been explored and they have been preserved and they are in excellent condition. The museums are in excellent condition. It is difficult to find such museums on the Silk Road like we have in Pakistan. In Afghanistan, the main site, the UNESCO site of Bamiyan, as you know, was dynamited by the Taliban in 2001 and 2002. But yet there is a lot to see in the Bamiyan caves. Lot to see in the Bamiyan caves. You can see the paintings. You can see stupas are being unearthed from some of the caves. Some stucco images are there, which is still, if a tourist goes there, will find a lot of material over there. So Bamiyan, in the Bamiyan Valley, there is Kakarak Valley, there is the Foladi Valley, but the colossal Buddhas which marked these valleys are no more because they were dynamited. But yet, if you go there, you will still see some paintings. The Balkh site, the Nav Vihar which you mentioned, no one has seen the Nav Vihar in recent times. In recent times, no one has seen the Nav Vihar. And when I wanted to go there, I wanted to explore the site. There was a big blast on the road. So I had to change my direction. I didn't go there. I went to another site in Samangan. Samangan site has been well preserved. The galleries, the cave galleries are there. You can see kunds over the monks, the chats, everything you can see there. It has been preserved very well. The stupa has been preserved very well in Samangan. That is the village of Aibak. The village of Aibak, that has been preserved very well. But other sites near Kabul, it is still being explored and excavated. But main antiquities you will only see in the museum of Kabul. That is the National Museum of Afghanistan at Kabul.
And just to give our viewers a statistic from Sunita's book, I didn't realize that the Karakoram Highway had 30,000 petroglyphs of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as many as 5,000 inscriptions in 10 different languages. It was the super highway of the world, and the faith moved from these roads along the Uttarakhand, which is of course the Asian highway now, into this region. So Sunita, really fantastic to hear you speak about it. Many thanks for making the journey for us and bringing it out in this book. It's been a fascinating read, and I would highly recommend this book to everybody because it really gives you an insight into an area that you've all read about, you've all heard about. These are names which are familiar, but here's someone who's actually, made the effort or taken the effort to travel through this area and bring us these stories. Many thanks, Sunita, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.